This week, we're going to be talking about Christian Horner's departure from Red Bull, what it might mean for the Verstappen situation, and how it might affect the rest of the grid. Hello, welcome to Back of the Grid. I'm Chris, joined as always by Tom.
Hello.
A nice quiet off week we've had.
Oh, yeah. Never any news in the summer off week, right?
No, and definitely never any news a day or two after we've recorded.
No, never.
Yes, Christian Horner, officially released from operational duties at Red Bull, which is a legally safe way of saying he's been fired from his job as team principal after 20 years in charge at Red Bull.
Yeah, interestingly, though, something that was said in amongst all that was that he wasn't directly leaving the business. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's quite hard to fire people in the UK with our employment laws. So officially, he does still work for Red Bull, just without any actual day-to-day responsibility. There's going to be a deal over him exiting. I've seen something that claimed it could cost Red Bull up to £50 million to pay off the contract he has with them. How much truth there is to that, I don't know. But he's done. He is the only team principal Red Bull have ever had in their entire duration as a team. The longest serving on the grid by some margin. Obviously, he's overseen, 8 drivers' titles, 6 constructors' titles.
Sounds about right.
And I read earlier today, 124 wins. The only person leading a Formula One team that has had more race wins is Ron Dennis, which is...
Oh, wow. Did not see that one.
Yeah, pretty big. I mean, he's been such a huge part of F1 for so long. He's been instrumental in making that team what it is.
Yeah.
But... his time has come to an end. The timing is interesting. I guess we can kind of get into the various reasons and possible causes of this. I mean, in terms of recent things, there's obviously a downturn in performance. Probably since about this time last year, things have tailed off. Kind of alongside that, there's been the constant problem with the second car, with drivers struggling in that second seat. The Perez situation, Christian Horner was responsible for giving Perez a new contract, which they then had to buy Perez out of, which thought to be about 18 million euros. I think that costs them, which, is small change for a company as big as Red Bull, but still 80 million they'd rather be spending elsewhere. There's also been the sort of massive lack of a loss of staff over recent years, most notably Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Rob Marshall, Will Courtney have all left under Christian Horner's watch and all moved to rival teams. On top of all of that, we had the beginning of last season the accusations of harassment and controlling behaviour by a female employee, which, we should say that he was cleared of twice, albeit by an internal investigation. I believe I'm right in saying there's some kind of outside appeal going on around that now. I know there was a lot of stories at the time that Ford in particular weren't happy that he was remaining under those circumstances. Obviously, Ford are coming in next year as their engine partner. Speaking of engines, he also supposedly Christian Horner was the one responsible for kind of killing the potential Porsche power unit deal, which a lot of people within the team didn't like. Lots happened in the last couple of years, and I don't feel like this is not one thing, is it? This is a combination of things. What ended up being the final straw, I'm not sure, but this does feel like it's been coming for... I mean, honestly, it feels like this has been coming since Dietrich Mateschitz died. What was that, 2022? And the kind of power struggle that seemed to happen as a result of that. Primarily between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. Eventually, it seems like the Verstappen camp basically said, if Helmut goes, we go, and that kind of put an end to it. But yeah, the timing is strange. Like there's all this list of things, and you could point to any one of those, but you could also point to lots of points within the last couple of years where it might have been a better time for him to go. Like a lot of people thought 18 months ago when those accusations came out is probably when they sort of should have sidestepped him. It seems like it was the Yavida family, which is the sort of co-founders of Red Bull, backed him, and that backing now seems to have disappeared. In some ways a surprise, in some ways a long time coming, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, I think the downturn in performance is something that teams can normally ride through and come back from for the most part. The main problem here is all the other stuff surrounding it, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of talk about, is this Team Verstappen trying to orchestrate their way of staying, essentially saying that they're not staying if he stays, and it's Red Bull's way of attempting to keep hold of Verstappen. Don't know if that's necessarily where that had come from. I know there was a little bit of a disagreement from Max's side of things when it came to those misconduct allegations and so on, and it was the Max Verstappen side of things were not happy with like that whole scenario. But honestly, what is there genuinely long term right now, at least, for Max to want to stay at Red Bull with or without Christian Horner? Like whether he's there or not, there's nothing that looks promising in terms of aero with the people who've gone, in terms of leadership with the people who've gone. They're in an unknown with this whole partnership with Ford for engines. Like it's very much unknown. And yes, fair enough. Him and everyone within the team will be privy to more information on that to be able to make a more informed decision than us mere mortals are sat behind computers. But at the end of the day, I think there's more to it than just it's Max's team making suggestions and sort of threats almost of, if he doesn't go, we will go. I think there's a lot more to it than that. And it was something that was on the cards with or without the whole Max Verstappen contract situation, I think.
Yeah, I think to say it's just that would be oversimplifying it. Maybe this Max situation is the straw that broke the camel's back. This is kind of the final straw for them. Because, you're right. Like, Red Bull are struggling right now in a very aero-heavy formula. We're about to move into the biggest change in regulations, arguably in F1 history next year. If I had to trust one of the engine manufacturers to nail those regulations, it probably wouldn't be Red Bull, Ford, who are both very, very new to this. You'd be looking at a Mercedes, a Honda, to do a better job of that. Even Audi, Audi have been working on the power unit for their entry for a number of years now. Maybe this decision's been made to try to appease Verstappen. Maybe Verstappen's already made a decision and this is, Christian Horner's taking the fall for it. Either of those things are possible, I think. But it's a huge change. Like, as we said, he's been there for the entire tenure of this team. He's been instrumental in building it into what it is. I do wonder as well if there's an element of, from the outside, Red Bull very much still seems to be run in the sort of very traditional way of Christian Horner is the person running that team and kind of everything cascades down from him. But you look at a lot of other teams on the grid now who are using a much kind of broader structure and having specialists in different areas able to make their own decisions and not have to sort of follow this sort of leadership tree. Perhaps this is also wanting to, break that structure and try and form something new. I mean, the fact that Christian Horner's replacement is Lauren Mekies, who comes from a very technical background makes me wonder if they are going to then hire some more people to kind of spread that role out a bit more, like the likes of McLaren have done recently.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to also see the new generation of team principals and so on come from those technical backgrounds a lot of the time as well,
Yeah.
because it is such a huge part of building a team, running a team, and making a team successful. So a lot of them are coming from those technical roles within other teams and getting their opportunity to uh, like take a head role somewhere else. Essentially, like if you look at the team principals up and down the grid at the minute, when you look at people like Laura Mekies and he's been around since Arrows and um, Minardi days,
Yeah.
realistically. And so he's been with that team, the junior team, since its inception, essentially. He was there when it was Minardi. He went through the
Yeah.
change of Toro Rosso and all the guys as it's had since, and now he's moved it up to this position at Red Bull. So he's been around as long, if not longer, than Horner, to potentially, I think.
Yeah, possibly within the Red Bull well,
oh no, sorry, no, because Toro Rosso didn't come straight away, did it?
yeah.
So yeah, there's. He's been there nearly 20 years, though. He's been there nearly as long, essentially. And yes, not in a team principal role, but he's been in the sport. And although they're like a junior team to Red Bull, over the years, they've definitely been very much operated as an independent when it comes to the car that they're building. Like, there was always these questions around, well, why aren't they just using the Red Bull and blah, blah, blah. But they've always been fairly independent in developing their own car, whether for better or for worse. Like right now, we've seen it for better. In the past, we've seen it for worse. Like, and they do go through peaks and troughs because generally they are, responsible for their own car. It's more only from a driver's and a race perspective that there's ever usually any controlling element from the Red Bull side of things.
Yeah.
But it'd be very interesting to see how that sort of plays out under Lauren Mekies as well, because he's probably been hard done by a lot of the time in his tenure at the junior team by having drivers ripped from under him, taken to the
Yeah.
big team, and then thrown away. So it'd be interesting to see how he adjusts the way that works currently.
It's going to be a very different Red Bull under him, I think.
Yeah, and who knows, we may even see more hires of drivers from a Perez style of scenario where it's someone who's become established on the grid and comes into the team rather than having to be this super young talent of the future driver that's been hoisted from F2 or whatever straight into a Red Bull or things like that. So and again, that might be something that's for the better for them, that just change of mindset. Just depends on how much control they let him have over things like that, I guess.
So for those, Lauren Mekies, despite him being around for so long, he might still be quite a new face to a lot of people.
True.
So yeah, as you said, he joined F1 with Arrows back in 2001. He's actually Mark Webber's race engineer at Minardi for a year or two. Then, as Minardi became Toro Rosso, he became chief engineer, and he was there until 2014. And then he actually left to join the FIA. He was safety director and then was deputy race director for a few years before he left to join Ferrari, which was super controversial at the time, having somebody working within the FIA suddenly being on the Ferrari pit wall. And he was very much there in the Mattia Binotto era. He was sporting director and then sort of moved up and was eventually deputy team principal. He left a few months after Binotto was fired from the team principal role and returned to what is now RB as their team principal. But yeah, he definitely seems a very different character. Like Christian Horner has always been he's always seemed a very old school team principal. He's kind of from the Jean Tard, the Flavio Briatore, the Ron Dennis mold, whereas you look at the more modern team principals that we mentioned before, and Lauren Mekies definitely feels more in that kind of less top-down mold from what we've seen of him.
Out of interest, where would you see Toto Wolff on that scale? Because I think he's an interesting
somewhere
one,
in the
'cause
middle.
he sits kind of on both sides of that. Like there is
Yeah,
very much an element of I am CEO of this team. I'm a controlling shareholder. Everybody does what I say. But then on the flip side of that, there is also definitely elements of embracing talented members of the management team and doing what they can to help progress them internally and stuff
yeah,
like that and give them voices and so on. So yeah, it's somewhere in the middle, but like you say, there's a definite shift where I mean, since Flav has been back at Alpine, look at the messing around you've had with drivers and
exactly.
the mixed results and so on as what's been going on there. It shows that maybe in this era that way of management doesn't work anymore, and Red Bull were maybe able to hide behind some very talented people like your Wheatleys and your Newies and so on, who were a part of making that team what it was, but behind the scenes, the management was lacking. And as those people are leaving because of that, it's becoming more and more apparent that that is the case, and that's where this decision has come from.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Laurent Mekies taking over at Red Bull could potentially be a good thing for Yuki? Because he's a driver under a lot of pressure at the moment. Another one struggling in that second Red Bull seat.
I think it'll probably save him for the rest of the season because Laurent knows him already pretty well from. I was going to say Toro Rosso then because we were talking about it like that earlier. From Alfa,
The team formerly known as Minardi.
Yeah, like from those earlier days when he was with the junior team. So I think it will possibly help in that regard, just to make sure he does stay around. But on the flip side, I guess there's an element here of Red Bull upper management showing that they've not got patience for poor results, especially if someone with the tenure that Horner has is going. So whether it helps him long term or not leaves to be seen. And it will probably very much pin around what happens with this Max Verstappen decision.
Yeah.
Because if Max does announce that he's done a deal with Aston or Mercedes or whoever, it doesn't really matter who it is. Like if he announces he's done a deal with somebody else, and by the end of this like mini summer break or like within the next race or two, he's announcing a move to somewhere else, they might not have any choice but to sit with Yuki for a while. And it could be like a team that's maybe Yuki and Hadjar or something next season, which would be a very strange place for Red Bull to find themselves in without a I wouldn't say guaranteed champion contender, but a driver of that ilk where sort of no matter if the car is good or bad, you would expect them to be at least mixing it in the results like what Max does, like what Seb was able to do and things like that. So
yeah, or they'll have to try and lure someone from outside the team, as you were saying earlier, in the same way they did Perez, and that could be a difficult challenge if the season they're currently having continues to go the way it is.
Yeah, the problem is without the proof of the new aero and new engine combination, they've not got anything to sell anybody on, right? If they were to do that.
At that point, you're looking at a seat that Max Verstappen has decided he doesn't want. Like that's not an appealing sales pitch.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think Yuki probably will be good for the rest of the year now. I mean, he kind of already was, but I think this probably cements it. Maybe this change will provide an environment where he can figure out his issues better, but we'll see. I wanted to mention as well who is replacing Laurent Mekies at RB, which is a guy called Alan Permain. Now, he's been around in F1 even longer. His career goes back to Benetton in 1989.
I mean, if anybody has been around the sport a while but does not know who Alan Permain is, a quote of his I could give you that may help is, "Kimmy, just move out of the way."
Yes.
or whatever it was, something to that effect.
Yeah.
That was
Or
Lotus Days, was it?
it was, yeah, that was Lotus. Or there's another famous one that you hear a lot, to Fisichella at Renault. It's impossible that you're 2 seconds lap slower than Alonso. You're on the same tyres and the same fuel.
Yeah.
There's no way you can be this slow.
Yeah.
He was, he was a bit spicy as a race engineer.
Very direct.
But yeah, he's been with that team. He was with that team Enstone basically from Benson in '89 all the way up to 2023. He was sporting director by that point when they released him. And then he joined RB at the start of 2024, same time as Lauren Mekies as their racing director. The other interesting thing about Alan Permain, those of you who remember the Crashgate investigation,
Yeah.
in all of the documents to do with the FIA investigation, there was someone called Witness X who provided the FIA with lots of internal evidence, which was critical to them finding the team guilty of Crashgate. And it's never been confirmed, but it is very widely believed that Alan Permain was Witness X, the man who helped bring down Flavio from inside, which is interesting.
And yet he's back.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We need a witness guy now.
Really interested to see what Alan Permain is like as a team principal, because he's been in F1 this long, he's never been very public facing as a figure. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he's like. So yeah, that's kind of up to date with like where we are with things. I guess there's two other things to cover.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think is next for Christian Horner? He's not able to do anything in the short term because, as we said at the start, he is still a Red Bull employee, at least for now, until they sort something out. I imagine he's got some pretty big non-compete clauses in his contract, which is one of the things they will need to iron out. But do you think we're going to see him go somewhere else in F1?
That could also be part of the whole, I'll be stepping down from my role, but I'll still be part of the team, however it was.
Yeah.
So that could easily be part of that because of the non-compete. And essentially, he's on some sort of gardening leave to keep him employed by the team, but away from day-to-day management of it in order to stop him from taking things to other teams. But, I mean, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility to see him with another team. I don't think like you say, it'll be any time in the immediate future just because of the position that he's been in, and there will probably be like some non-competes and so on that he's got to adhere to from a Red Bull perspective. In the same way that even when Newey left, it was a long time before we've seen him in and around the Aston Martin garage, for example. So I don't know. I mean, Paul in chat right now is saying a Sky F1 pundit with Danica and Rosberg.
Oh, God.
But honestly, Sky do have a little bit of a thing for getting Christian Horner on from the pit wall, don't they? They like a good old conversation on the TV with Christian. So
yeah, they really do.
Like, they interview him a lot, so maybe there is an element of that. Like, there's a number of their team that have sort of stepped back and stepped away in recent years and things like that. So with that ex-driver persona starting to be lacking a little bit, maybe they'll go down that team principal route. I mean, obviously, Eddie Jordan's been in and around the paddock up until his passing, and as like an ex-team principal, maybe he ends up in that sort of role, even if it's just a temporary thing. Who knows?
I think that might be the final straw for Jensen Button if he has to share the screen with Danica Patrick and Christian Horner.
Well, I suppose Eddie was on Channel 4 a lot
he was
towards the end of his time in the paddock, wasn't he? So maybe if you're a Sky viewer, you'll be saved that. But yeah, I can't imagine the combination of Danica, Christian and Nico Rosberg at the same time. I think that might be too much for most people.
That would be too much for the average person.
Yeah.
There is a lot of talk at the moment about Fred Vasseur's future at Ferrari potentially being in jeopardy, and people linking Christian Horner potentially there. I really can't see that, to be honest. I think that would be a huge error on Ferrari's part.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a little bit of an element of that old school way of managing things that someone like an Enzo Ferrari would maybe take a shine into. But I don't think the current management within Ferrari itself think like that anymore, which would probably rule that out. Right now, I don't know where he would go. I don't know who would. There's going to be nobody like jumping through hoops to try and find a way to get him right now, I don't think. I think most teams are going to be happy with what they've got. And when you look at things like Wheatley going to Williams, Sauber, sorry. It's Mercedes, it's Vowles, isn't it?
James Vowles, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like with him going to Sauber are probably feeling like they've got their guy that was an influential part in Red Bull.
Yeah.
And other teams are possibly looking at it as, oh, well, like no Newey, no Wheatley, things are starting to fall away a little bit. So is Christian really who you want in there?
I think the only outlier there is probably Alpine, because
maybe
they are they have Flavio there kind of acting as team principal, but they don't have anyone. They've said that's not a permanent fixture and they are going to be looking for someone else.
Did we not say last time we talked about Flavio in that position that he's not technically allowed to be the team principal as part of his old ban or something like that?
Yeah, he's kind of doing those duties without actually being called that.
So, maybe that's one, but obviously, depending on how long they'd need to wait for non-competes and things like that, it might not be feasible. But I can imagine him being someone Flavio would get along with in some regards. So maybe.
I mean, that would be hilarious because Christian Horner had such a dislike and feud with Renault for so many years when they were their engine supplier.
Yeah.
And then he'd have to go there and he'd have to deal directly with Toto Wolff because they're going to be running Mercedes engines from next year.
Yeah.
There is also talk ramping up again, I've seen today, of Alpine potentially going up for sale. So perhaps that could play into things as well. I suspect he's probably going to take a year or two out, though, to be completely honest.
You never know. Maybe there'll be a Arden Motorsport Formula One entry at some point.
Yeah, of course. I forgot he was there.
Because he's obviously a big part and original founder, I think, of Arden. So could well go down that route, and then he can't ever be fired because it's his own thing. So.
The other thing to discuss, which we promised we would last week, is the whole Verstappen to Mercedes potential and what that means for George Russell. Because this story seems to be gathering pace. I mean, I saw people over the weekend literally tracking Toto and Max's private jets and trying to build a story. They were in the same place at the same time, and they were doctored photos supposedly showing them right. It was a whole thing. I feel sorry for George Russell because I think he's doing everything he needs to earn an extension in that seat. And I think if someone has to make way for Verstappen, it probably is going to be him. I suppose there's a possibility they send Antonelli off to one of the teams that supply engines to for a year or two and then bring him back. But I don't know if I can see that, to be honest. They've put so much stock in Antonelli being the next big thing. They've put him straight in the big seat. I can't see them shepherding him off somewhere again.
I would say if it is happening and it does become a thing, I would say George is unfortunately the one to lose out. He's the one without a contract at the minute, without a renewal. He's the one that's got the question marks around him from that. As per other scenarios we've talked about in the past, like when a person like Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen or someone of their level of talent comes knocking, you automatically start considering it, regardless of your current driver situation for yourselves. So, yeah, it's I I can't see it. I can't see it not happening, if that makes sense. As in, at some point, I think it will happen. It's just whether or not it happens now.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that's always been consistent in hybrid era is the Mercedes engine. I mean, even in seasons where the Mercedes itself isn't that great of a car, Mercedes powered cars are winning races fairly reliably, like the McLaren and such like. So, I mean, even the early days of the hybrids where you had Williams literally side by side on the podium on a regular basis with
Yeah.
Mercedes because the engine was just that good. And I know that's a long time ago, but that just sort of shows how long they've had that advantage that other teams have in recent years luckily managed to eat into to keep it competitive. But yeah, I think I could see it happening at some point. It's just whether or not it happens right now.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, we've said it a couple of times over this season now. I still think his best bet is just to stay at Red Bull for another year and then look at who nails the new regulations and go there. Because, as we said before, he can pick and choose where he goes, with the exception of maybe McLaren, Ferrari at a push. Like, I don't think he needs to take the risk of moving to a new team for the new regulations straight away. I think he can afford
Yeah.
to wait.
Yeah. I think that it will happen at some point, like I say, just maybe not right now. But part of me wants it though. There's a big part of me that sits here wanting Toto to pull this off. And yeah, I'd feel sorry for George, but I would love to see what Verstappen can do in that Merc. But just because we've seen what he can do in the Red Bull this season, that's not a competitive car at all in the
Yeah,
grand scheme of things. So, what would he do in the Merc? That yeah, we know it only tends to work better in the colder temperatures and so on, but he's probably the kind of guy that could maybe go in there and fix that with them. Everyone talks about how a car's been developed around him. Well, if that's the case, he knows how to feed back what he wants out of the car.
yeah,
And that's what the great drivers can do. They can take a car, tell you what's not good about it and what will make it faster, and push you in the right development way. And yeah, sometimes you get a Verstappen-esque driver where that maybe makes the car a little bit undrivable for other people, but it's makes it the fastest in
yeah.
his hands. And we know that when he's got a car that he's fast with, he will win championships. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rumors come from a place of truth for sure.
Yeah, and I think if it does happen immediately, I think Russell, he'll find a seat elsewhere.
Where do you think he would go? Let's hypothesize that. If let's say we come back from summer break in a week or two's time, and is it officially summer break? This I don't even know anymore.
There's
I mean,
like two.
traditionally it is, isn't it? Between now
Yeah,
and
there's actually
Spa,
a bigger gap in August, I think, than we're
or
having now.
after Spa,
It's
yeah,
weird this year.
because Spa's a bit early. Anyway, over the next few weeks, basically a surrounding Spa, I guess. Bearing in mind that I think the race after Spa is Zandvoort, is it not?
Ooh,
I
I think it
think.
might be.
Um, so with things like that, what a coup it would be for Mercedes to have actually and Toto to have actually
Yeah,
got that deal done to be able to. Oh no, sorry, Hungary comes first. There's a Hungarian GP. So you got Belgium and Hungary very close together in the next couple of weeks, and then you've got that's where the big gap then comes in through August and the Dutch Grand Prix after that. But regardless, imagine if they got that deal done and
yeah, man, that'd be
for the Dutch Grand Prix,
big.
there's a huge announcement that we'll be going to Mercedes. I'd buy an orange Mercedes hat.
I think I think Aston Martin would be a good destination for him. Whether Aston Martin are ready to kick Lance Stroll out, Yet I don't know. With the new regulations and Adrian Newey coming in, I think Lawrence Stroll is going to want to give him at least 1 year in an Adrian Newey car before they make that decision.
Do you think they'd actually kick Fernando out to replace him with Max if that was the case?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what Fernando's contract's like at the moment. I think he's maybe got at least another year on it.
I think he did 2, didn't he, to basically take him into the new regulations with Newey?
Yeah, I think so.
I think. But, I mean, they're the main 2 places I could see him landing, is to go with Newey and end up at Aston Martin, replacing one of their drivers, whichever it may be, like Alonso from an age and had enough perspective, and Stroll from my wrist hurts, can't drive anymore, not really been kicked out because of my lack of talent, I'm being kicked out because of my lack of wrists perspective.
I mean...
Or Russell going out at Mercedes. I can't, at the minute, can't see Ferrari being bothered when they've signed Hamilton. Again, though, that's just a hilarious scenario that I would love to see, is Ferrari to go Hamilton and Verstappen together would be gold for me to see that.
Oh, that'd be insanity. I suppose there's also the possibility that Cadillac are holding off their driver announcements to wait and see how this situation plays out.
Yeah, what in case
George
Russell's
available,
chucked out of Mercedes and ends up with a Cadillac contract, maybe Russell and Bottas at Cadillac.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's going to be.
There'd still be a seat for Red Bull to fill, though, wouldn't they? Realistically, someone would have to go to Red Bull.
True, yeah.
Would Red Bull maybe go poach someone like Sainz or Albon back from Williams if they could, like a driver that's been in their past and they know has like re-established themselves on the grid? Would they go
Discord is
like
suggesting
that?
Williams as a possible destination for Russell to return there. So maybe
Albon,
there's
Albon back to Red Bull, maybe.
I tell you what, if this does happen and Max does leave Red Bull, it's all bets are off. Basically, every contract on the grid is going to be worthless. Everyone's going to be shuffling around.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's a little bit like that Hamilton situation to Ferrari that caused a little bit of, maybe not as much chaos as we thought it might cause, but it causes a lot of shuffling around and things like that. So maybe we see that again. And as well, you don't know how many of the rookies are going to survive. There might be teams looking at their rookies and thinking, we don't see a long term here, so we want, if Russell drops out of Mercedes for Verstappen or whatever it might be, we maybe want to pick somebody like that up. You never know.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy summer, I think.
Yeah, it will cause chaos if it happens, though.
Yeah. Right, I think we will probably wrap it up about there. We're just about back up to date with the world of F1. We'll be back next week to preview the Belgian Grand Prix, won't we? I tried saying that last week. I was a bit too keen. But next week, we will be back to preview the Belgian Grand Prix. If you want to get in touch with us between now and then, backthegrid.com or all the social media places. You can go to patreon.com/backthegrid to find out how to join our Discord community and listen along live to our recording. But I think that's it for now. So thanks for joining us. We'll speak to you next week. And until then, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.